Technology and Engagement Editor for Brain Food TV, and I'll be your host for today's discussion. Today we're going to talk about what IT organizations really do and should do in health-focused companies. I've got two guests that I've got tremendous respect for, and I've had the privilege of working with a bit over the past couple of years. That's Jeff Powers and Darin Wilson. We're going to get into our discussion in a moment, but first, a few basic rules here about Brain Food. First, we keep it short. Our conversations are usually 15 to 20 minutes long. Second, we don't take ourselves too seriously. Third, anything we say here today is not the opinion of our organizations, past, present, or future, and the ideas and opinions that we express are our own. Finally, we're not commercial. We're not here to sell anything. We're just here to talk. So that said, we're going to get started with you, Jeff. Could you tell us a little bit about what you do, and then let's talk about kind of what I view as the sad truth, and that is in a lot of places, IT organizations aren't looked at as partners. They're kind of viewed as obstacles. Why is that?
Well, first of all, who I am, I'm the IT director for commercial, so I'm focused on the commercial side of our organization, which is anything sales and marketing and things within that nature. And we take a pretty serious look here about being a partner with the organization. I'm in IT. For a lot of people, that can mean a pretty bad word. We like to think of it as an enabler for the company, and we certainly take that very seriously here. We are business first, in IT second, and quite honestly, I believe our job is really to connect the dots between what the business needs and what we know about technology.
That's a great point. Very good. Darin, let me get to you now. Talk a little bit about yourself and talk a little bit about how we help business, kind of get from objective to success through your help.
Yeah, hi, Darin Wilson, Manager of Commercial Applications and Services, focused on the U.S. market. And similar to Jeff, I focus on technologies and services that serve the sales, marketing, and medical side of our business. And also, I handle all of our mobile technologies. And I think to kind of echo what Jeff said, we try to be enablers. I think a challenge for a lot of IT organizations is they're the problem, not the solution. And I think that where IT organizations fail is they lead with the technology with the business. They don't really focus on the business case itself. At the end of the day, the business doesn't really care what a solution is called or what the technology is named. What they do care about is it solved a real business problem for them or gave them new functionality or new optimizations that they didn't have in the past. And I think if IT organizations can shift their focus to understanding the business and understanding the business case, they will eventually trust you by delivery of services and solutions to meet their needs.
Why do you think that IT organizations kind of focus on the solutions? Are we kind of bred to do that and think tech first, business second? I mean, is that where our challenge in alignment is?
We might read too many magazines.
That's a good point. Flight magazines, exactly.
And it's always about here's the right way to do it. Here's the right way to structure yourself. It gets almost a bit academic, and we get lost, I believe, within that world. For us, I mean, we need to look around the organization. If we don't understand the business, we're not going to be relevant, and we're not going to know what technology should even apply. I'm a firm believer, it's something I preach around here quite a bit, that especially nowadays, different from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, technology is going to happen within an organization with or without IT. It's just too easy for groups to do that on their own. And if we aren't there solving the problems that a department or division needs, they're going to go off on their own and do it anyway, which will cause us to become much, much less relevant and eventually probably not have a real good place within the organization.
That's a great point. That's a great point. So how do we get there? How do we avoid from getting lost in sort of this technology morass? What do we do to communicate better to business so that business trusts us?
Well, I think you have to show value. Sorry, Jeff. I think you have to show value. I think at the end of the day, you have to be viewed as a peer, and you don't just walk in and say, "Hi, I'm now a peer." You have to earn that by relationships. You have to earn that with, frankly, some wins. You have to be able to go in there, listen to a real challenge from the business, and then deliver a solution, and not necessarily tout that you provided a technology, but you enabled the business. And I think once you get a few of those underneath the belt, the perception of what they have of an IT organization starts to change. And then they start to pull you in much earlier in the conversations. I think one of the challenges for IT is you're often not brought in until it's time to execute on something where you don't have necessarily an opportunity to influence a business decision. They may not know of what technologies are out there, so they do their own business case, and then when it's time to build it, they hand you the build instructions, and oftentimes we have maybe disagreements or better ideas of how we can leverage new technologies they didn't know about, and that's a challenge.
That's a great point, and let me just kind of mention this is one of the great things about working with you guys in the past few years has been, if we look at sort of a process between strategy, tactics, and then operations, many IT organizations are purely operational, to your point, Darin. Whereas you guys seem to be very, very strategic, and you are viewed as partners, and you're the guys who are helping understand the business needs and try to fulfill those needs, any way you can. So let me kind of take a step back and let me address this to Jeff first, and then we'll get to you as well, Darin. And I hear the word alignment a lot, and it's one of those funny words. I read an article recently that talked about alignment not being enough, that you can have business and IT aligned, but you could be heading basically off a cliff in the wrong direction. So how do we ensure that we're not just aligned, but that we're moving correctly in the right direction? How would we do that, Jeff?
We have to have a passion for the business, and if we do not understand the business as well as our peers throughout the organization, we're going to find solutions for the wrong problems. So we have to get engaged. I call it getting up out of a chair. We need to get up and have business discussions with the rest of the organization. From that, we need to seek out opportunities to highlight what Darin was saying earlier, to get into some relevant cause that the organization has coming on to actually be credible. Once you do that, the way I measure success for people, I say, you're actually making inroads into the organization when you're finally getting invited to meetings, business meetings where they're discussing strategy. You've really done real well when they won't have that meeting unless you can be there. So, alignment, it can be a dangerous thing, but if you are working with smart people, you have a passion for the business yourself, you're going to figure it out and most of the time get it right.
Excellent. Darin, same thoughts?
Yeah, let me add to that. I mean, alignment, of course, is important, but I take a look at it and say, what's our philosophy? We can all get on a whiteboard and come up with a really bad solution. The idea is, who do we want to be? How do our customers, and in IT, that's everyone in our organization, what do they need? What are they using? And really, it comes down to philosophically, the business and IT as they align, who do we want to be? Do we want to be a progressive company that leverages bleeding edge technologies that's very available out in the consumer space? Do we want to be mobile? Do we want to be cloud? Do we want to be governance? And I think it all starts with having a good philosophy to ensure that IT and the business aligned with what we want to offer. Who do we want to be? What types of services do we want to provide to our employees? And I think that's absolutely critical, because you can be aligned, but if the philosophies are different, you're never going to get anywhere.
That's a great point. You made two really interesting points there. One was kind of governance. The other was you're balancing that with let the kids play, right? So what's going to happen, particularly in larger organizations or in any organization for that matter now with the state of technology is that everybody's got something cool that they want to try to use. So how do you manage that? When we hear talk about BYOD environments and everything, you need to solve problems, you need to enable success, but you need to be credible at the same time. So certainly not an easy thing to do. Another question, I'll start with you, Darin, and we'll flip it back over to Jeff, and that is, how do you deal with silos in organizations?
Silos are always a difficult thing, because a lot of times it's related to power or authority and who gets to make the decisions. And the key is to try to find solutions that make that irrelevant. How do you actually find opportunities to leverage what you've done in one business unit to another? And I think I'm going to borrow from Jeff. It's all about relationships. You have to know enough about each business unit to, when you deliver a solution, you already know other parts of your organization that can benefit, and you actually bring those people together. You want to turn your successes in the business with those individuals into them advocating to other groups what you've done for them. And I think that helps fracture silos, because a salesperson may see what marketing's done and said, hey, that's really cool, how did that happen? And they actually become advocates for you, and then you get involved in that business. And you have to be aware of where the opportunities are in that organization. I think that really helps.
That makes a lot of sense. Jeff, let me ask you to expand on that a little bit. Now, you've got a global role, so you're all over the world doing this. You find the same sort of challenges and solutions?
Yeah, and a lot of times the silos, just as Darin mentioned, they can be political and kind of power-oriented, but many times it's geography, which is what I deal with. It's not that people have any kind of animosity toward each other. It's just they're in very different places. And I fully believe that a role that I have in the individuals who work for me is to be a catalyst to ensure we include the right people in the discussions. And it's actually very powerful, and it's amazing the collaboration you can get just by connecting. I always call it connecting the dots. There's a lot of different views of connecting the dots. In this sense, it's actually connecting the organization. And you can accelerate action and activity in the company when you introduce 2, 3, or 4 different groups together that really have the same cause. And so that's a very significant role that I have, and that I am coaching quite a bit, get all the right people in the right conversation.
That sounds great. Darin, were you going to make another point?
No, I fully agree with that. Absolutely.
Gotcha. So let me kind of throw something out that's kind of fun. It came up recently, actually, for me, and somebody showed me a document. I think the document's kind of old, and it was a Microsoft document, or at least it had a Microsoft label on it at one point, that was basically a 9-page functional specification on how to create a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And the reason I bring this up is, yeah, we're all laughing because there seems to be this huge disconnect between the way traditional IT thinks, at least in terms of development, and the way business thinks. You know, from an executive standpoint, I would say, listen, it's a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You have some contextual awareness about it, and not to mention, oh, by the way, the ingredients are in the name, peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So the fact that we need 9 pages to deal with that is a little bit disconcerting to somebody from a business sense. It sounds like you guys have broken through that approach, and you really have a common sense approach to meeting businesses' needs through technology. Do you still have to balance that internally with your IT organization as well? Are there still groups that are looking for that 9-page document on PB&J?
There definitely are. You know, I would say that in general, all IT people need to start thinking differently. There's a lot of buzzwords out within the industry on agile methodologies and such. But we can overplan and overgovern ourselves. Now, that's not to say that there isn't a balance that needs to be out there. I fully support the fact that we need to do some things silently without making it real present out to the community that we're doing all these things behind the scenes. But speed and agility, to me, are so key. And we need to figure out how to take an idea and get it in a prototype as quickly as possible to see if it's going to work to where we get business value out of it. We need to leverage technologies out there that enable us to even do that quicker. That's why I'm very big on cloud services and such right now. It's so easy to try something real quick. It worked, it did not work, you move on, versus going through massive amounts of planning, putting in infrastructure internally and such, and then being committed with a lot of capital saying, now I got to make this work. Don't want to go there.
Gotcha. Let me ask you a question, Darin. It's very related, actually, and that is about innovation. So, first of all, who owns innovation, or is there a process that you follow to make that happen?
Yeah, when it comes down to innovation and who owns it, I think you leave it to the masses. I think where IT gets in trouble is that they perceive themselves as the innovators, but at the end of the day, they're really not innovating. They're looking to control. I mean, we come from a pedigree and a lifelong teaching of security and governance. Go to any technology class and you're going to talk about security and governance. They're not really going to talk about innovation and how you enable the business and make that top priority. And so I think that's really important for us to focus on. I look at it and say, to Jeff's point, there's balance with everything. You don't need to throw caution to the wind, but the people that are consuming the technology are your best innovators. You cannot possibly know everything about the day-to-day life of every employee in your organization. But what you can do is give them access to the technology so they can come to you and say, hey, I got this great idea. They may not know how to build it. They may not know how to implement it. They may not know how to manage it. By having that conversation with you, you can be that partner to do the rest of the work that they don't functionally understand, but they've given you a really good idea. And to me, that's where you innovate. That's
fantastic. Very good stuff. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. This has been a fantastic discussion. I promised you that we'd keep it short and sweet, and we have. We'll probably do a follow-up to this as well. You guys have both been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. This is Brain Food signing out.
Thank you.